you everyone for joining this afternoon. Hope you're all well. I would like to welcome you all to today's session. What is AI and what can it do for your terminal? My name is Marta and I will be hosting the session this afternoon. So in studying terminal management operations, our experts identified a number of issues and opportunities that in resolving them could lead to the improvement of the eYARD processes. So in this webinar, we will be sharing insights to prepare you for the next data science revolution and AI. This will be an opportunity to delve deeper into cost saving and efficiency within your processes. As a cloud-based solution, eYARD improves productivity and cuts costs, reducing the number of unproductive moves by introducing AI into the everyday operations of the terminal. And so we're joined today by our experts, Pablo Fernández-Peña and Mike Dekker. Pablo is the CEO and co-founder at eYARD. Hello, Pablo.
Hello, everyone.
Pablo is an entrepreneur with a vast experience in creating high added value technology solutions and apply them to complex processes across different sectors. Mike is an advisory board member at eYARD. Hi, Mike. Good afternoon.
Hi, Marta. Hi, Pablo. And hi, all in the rest of the world.
Thank you. Mike has over 30 years of experience in port and inland terminals. He started his career in the port of Rotterdam at ECT, where he was a member of the design team for the world's first automated container handling facility. He also worked for TCB's Barcelona, which was later bought by APM Terminals. Their expertise in the matter will allow Pablo and Mike to answer how science can boost your TOS efficiency. And in conversation with them, we identify some key questions such as, what is artificial intelligence? Or why should you not miss this revolution? What can AI actually do for your terminal? Or what does it take to make it work? I was briefly explaining that through the course of this webinar, we will be launching some polls to get everyone involved, and we would love to get your thoughts. And likewise, if you have any questions as the conversation carries on, please feel free to raise this via the Zoom button or the Q&A button at the bottom of your interfaces. We will make sure that these are answered. We will try our best to answer all of this towards the end of the session. And so we're going to open up the conversation this afternoon by asking, what is artificial intelligence? Because we hear a lot on the media about it, and it might be something very familiar for many and also daunting for some. So, Pablo, would you be able to let us know what exactly is artificial intelligence?
Well, you're right, Marta. There is a lot of media attention, a lot of data on the internet about what artificial intelligence is all about. And I think all for the good reasons, because at the end, this is a technology that is transforming many sectors and many industries around the world. For instance, we already have applications of AI that are anticipating earthquakes to save lives. We even have other applications where they're protecting the wildlife and deforestation in countries or regions like Africa. So there is a lot of things happening in different sectors. To give you another example, it is expected by year 2025, 90% of air traffic control will be done by machines. So everybody is talking about it. No one wants to miss it. And I think an important step towards understanding what can it be done in our own areas of expertise is to better understand two main concepts. Maybe concepts that are really fundamental, or are really a keystone in what is happening with artificial intelligence. One is machine learning, which I'm pretty sure most of you already heard a little bit about it. And the second would be reinforcement learning. Both of them are subsets of artificial intelligence. In one hand, machine learning is the ability to find patterns in large data sets, learn from those patterns, and then make accurate predictions. So you actually see that machines are learning from experience, like humans do, where experience is data. Data could be words in a text, it could be words in a book, in a document, or even could be images. The important thing is that this data is the input that machine needs in order to learn. The second part of the process is in which it is applied complex mathematical functions to come up with a decision or an outcome that is used as a decision for a human to solve a complex problem or a complex process. On the other hand, we have reinforcement learning. Reinforcement learning is a more advanced subset of artificial intelligence. It tries to mimic the way humans think. And the way it does this is through neural networks, like we are structural, our brain is structured. In this case, the system works very differently than machine learning because we give them the rules of the game, and it's the machine who, by playing this game over and over and over again, comes to every possible move or every possible outcome. Then, through trial and error, and a lot of patience, maybe way more patience than any other human can ever have, it becomes amazing at playing that game. Here, the objective of the game is to win the game. Doesn't really matter the rules, doesn't really matter the game itself. Its objective is to win the game. So I think those two subsets of AI are really the drivers that are transforming industries around the world, and why I thought it was interesting to discuss it first.
Definitely, Pablo. Thank you very much for that very comprehensive explanation. But what is it that AI can do in that case?
Okay, so I think AI is especially good at solving complex problems, solving complex processes where the human brain just does not have the ability to do so. I think humans are pretty good with creativity, with faith and passion, but not when it comes to analyzing large dates of data or even making statistical decisions, right? So here, the machines, on the other hand, they are incorruptible, they are transparent and really cost efficient. They need each other. And in fact, I truly believe that human cooperation together with intelligent machines will not only drive the next ages or next years of human history, but it's actually something that is happening as we speak. For instance, you have examples in the healthcare sector where doctors are currently using artificial intelligence to help them diagnose diseases, like finding tumors or specific types of cancers, or even predicting heart attacks. Also, at the same time, the machines are also helping in many different ways, right? For instance, it's currently being applied in sectors that are not hitting the news so much. For instance, application of reinforcement learning to Formula One drivers to decide which type of strategies they should apply in order to win that race, deciding which is the next pit stop or how many tires to change in that pit stop, or how many liters of fuel they should put in that pit stop with only objective to winning that race. So there is no doubt that this technology is transforming many industries around the world. And with that in mind, a couple of years ago, we asked ourselves, what if we could predict change in a closed environment like a container terminal instead of just reacting to it? What if we could predict next container moves? Would that help us plan better our assets in the future? Would that help us optimize certain processes, but even help us reduce costs? So I think artificial intelligence has taken a little bit longer to get to container terminals as an industry, but it's definitely here to stay for a long term.
Thank you, Pablo. It does sound like that is the case. Those were very good and tangible examples. It seems like it is part of our everyday life. And so, Mike, based on your experience, what trend do you see in the container terminal community regarding this technology?
Well, Marta, regarding this technology, I think we have to review a little fast the different phases we have gone through over the last few years. It's all started with digitization of the analog data. To install those terminal operating systems which help your administrative processes and to some extent organizing the flows within your terminal. What I've seen there is that initially it was all mainframe based, and recently we go more and more to cloud-based terminal operating systems. And what I foresee here that once we go that step, then the TOSs maybe could be linked to other applications which are developed and using technology like artificial intelligence, for example. But that is not really a part of the digitization process, but it is what we call the digitalization process, and that is what we are currently in. But in between, we also have seen automation of container terminals. I think that at the moment about 10% of the world's main terminals is automated to a certain extent, whether we talk about the yard operations or the quayside operations, even remote controlled handling of the the ship-to-shore cranes, truck handling. So this is all a logical process in mechanization of container terminals, generating more data, and this is exactly what gives the power to this phase where we are nowadays, which is the digitalization, because this is the ability of digital technology to collect data, look for trends, what is going on in your operations, and use that to make better decisions, or maybe to develop tools which are going to predict and which you can even combine with simulation to see what's going to happen over the next few days. I think this is really a trend and a path on which we have entered, and is very interesting. And as I said, automation was in large terminals, but I've seen even now smaller terminals getting automated. And once this wheel starts turning and more terminals get automated, and also you get better tools, then this is the moment, I think, also for smaller terminals, not even with the automation, but also just rapidly to go for the application of, say, cloud-based solutions, which help you to predict your processes so that you can improve your efficiency and can better your competitive position.
Thank you, Mike. And so we would like to ask everybody else, we're going to be launching this first poll, which you should see in your screens now. Do you think this trend revolution could improve your terminal operations? We would love to get your thoughts. So we should see the responses coming through shortly, once you have added those. Thank you. Wonderful. So 89% of you have responded yes. So Pablo, putting the two together, container terminal management and AI, what can AI actually do for a terminal?
I think one of the beautiful things about working with artificial intelligence in container terminals is that container terminal operations have two components, two elements that are critical for AI to work, for AI to do its thing. One is the large data sets that are available. Second is the certain level of predictability on the operations, right? So of course, every terminal is different in nature, transshipment versus an import-export terminal, for example. But at the end, you know that a container is coming in and a container is getting out. So those two components, right, the predictability part and the data sets, are what makes it interesting for AI to have a really good playing ground, a playing field to do its thing. One of the cool things that we're actually working at eYARD is that we are fighting one of the largest sources of cost for the container terminal operators around the world, which is unproductive moves. Whether you call them unproductive moves or housekeeping or non-billable or shifters, these moves generate more than 17 billion euros on additional costs to terminal operators worldwide. So it's a big problem, and it's a problem that is actually, as we speak, affecting the P&L of the operators and the level of competitiveness of that operator, right? And the way we look at it, the way we try to solve it is through reinforcement learning algorithms, right? In which basically we designed a system by which it looks at the whole terminal layout as a huge chess game, in which you have hundreds or even thousands of stacking strategies of container locations. You can assign to every single one of them a number of KPIs or metrics, depending on what are the final objective of that operator. It could be number of moves expected in the future. It could be the cost associated to putting one container in one place or the other. It could be even the total travel distance of the assets or CO2 emissions footprints, right? The important thing is that you can actually, out of all those metrics, get the optimal solution, the optimal location, and improve the yard processes and operations. So this is one of the most compelling user cases we see in artificial intelligence in container terminals. There are others in which we are also working on, of course, but this is by far one of the most compelling that we see at the moment.
Thank you, Pablo. And following on from that, we are launching a second poll, which says, are unproductive moves a problem to solve in your terminal? We would love to hear whether, yes, they are an issue for you as well, or you don't track them maybe. We should see the responses shortly, but thank you again for participating. Let's have a look, just coming through. Lovely, so 93% of you consider that, yes, they do generate additional costs. Thank you very much again for your input on that one. So based on Pablo's answer, Mike, and the poll results, what does it take to make it work in any terminal?
Well, to make eYARD work, Marta, I think well, how it would be good to explain a little bit how we operate, I think. And so what we always do, we start with meeting or a few meetings where IT experts and terminal operating experts from both sides are sitting together, and where eYARD explains what is the kind of data what we need, what other kind of operational input do we need. So we ask questions, we get replies from the terminal, and that is the initial point. So, okay, as I said, we need data. So the terminal is going to send us the data that we are going to analyze. There might be some issues which have to be resolved, but okay, in the end, what we do is to prepare an historic data set which will be used in a eYARD emulation process. And this process needs good quality data and also sufficient data to cover a large period. As Pablo explained, we work with artificial intelligence, and to learn the algorithm, how your terminal works or should work, it needs a certain period of data. So once we have that, as I said, we are going to do the emulation. And an emulation is just replaying your history. Initially, we replay the history with your existing data without using the algorithm. We have a lot of KPIs in the system, and then we measure and we define the so-called zero state values of those KPIs. And then the next step is to run it again, but instead of using the historic positions of containers in the yard, the algorithm will now determine where containers are going to position during the operation. And of course, in that process, we collect again the KPI values, statistics, we compare that with the original values, the zero state values, and then we come to a conclusion whether it's a good or not a good solution for your facility, or that some parameters have to be changed, for example. So I think that is in general the way how we work, how we get it work for your terminal. And once both parties are satisfied, especially you as a client, then we are going to connect the module with your TOS via an API protocol.
Thank you, Mike. And bearing in mind all the types of terminals, so the inline, seaports, multimodal, can this technology work in any type of terminal? What about those that are very dynamic and changing in nature?
Well, I think for me, what I've seen of this technology is that, yes, it can work at any terminal. As long as you have a container yard with its equipment, which serves different modalities, the modality is not really the issue. It is the yard and the equipment which we improve by applying this technology. So every yard, as we said, generates unproductive moves, or maybe sometimes I like to say unbillable moves, those which cost and don't generate you any income. Because there's still some kind of category of unbillable moves which we do, which is housekeeping to improve the productivity in the next phase. But of course, if the algorithm works well, you don't have to do that anymore. Now, when we've been talking with a few parties over the last few months, year, and sometimes we came to the discovery that they don't have any idea. They know that shifters are a problem for them, but they don't have any clue how many shifters they are producing. For this also, we developed a very simple tool. And if you give us just an amount of basic data, like your traffic flow, your average stacking height, type of equipment, a little bit about your block dimensions, we can easily calculate an estimate of the amount of shifters you would have in your terminal. I think you will be shocked sometimes to see about the amount. Of course, it depends on the type of terminal. As Pablo said, the transshipment terminal will be different than an import-export terminal. And I don't think it's a big secret for people in our sector to know that especially import-loaded containers leaving via road which is very unpredictable, in general generates a lot of those shifters. While on a transshipment terminal, it's more controlled and you will have less, most likely. Also, the type of equipment is leading in this, especially a reach decker based type of operation generates quite a lot of shifters. So that is about a little bit about the software, whether it will work or not, whether about the dynamic terminals or whether conditions change. Well, personally, I would not be too worried about that. As we work with artificial intelligence algorithms, it's a matter of retraining regularly the algorithm based on updated information so that the system will adapt itself and will then deal in that way rapidly with any changes you are coming across.
Thank you, Mike. Pablo, do you have any user cases available from existing implementations? What lessons have you learned from those, if that's the case?
Yes, we do have already some integrations and implementations that have shown us good results. We developed different white papers, user cases, which we can share upon request. I think, well, many lessons learned, right? I think maybe two of the most important ones first is that sometimes we learn a little bit more from data than the operator itself. I mean, this is normal and it's human, right? As humans, we are used to believing that the operations of our company works in a specific way, and sometimes data proves us otherwise. So it's a really nice combination to work through the process of combining operators' knowledge with the data analysis to come up with the real solution that comes with the optimization of the terminal, right? That's a really a process in which go hand by hand with the operator. Second lessons that I maybe highlight is that, of course, data quality, right? Sometimes we find that maybe the data quality or the structure of the data sometimes is not good enough. So we need to work a little bit on what data is more relevant than others, how to gather data more efficiently, and how to, in general, have a really strategy of data mining, right? Which will at the end have a result on how we optimize the terminal. Because if we can measure something, there is no way we can improve it, correct? So these are lessons that we've learned. We learned some others and try to implement and work with them with further integrations, no? on pilots that we have.
Thank you, Pablo. And you talk about measuring. And so, Mike, we would like to ask you as well, what KPIs do you measure before and after?
Well, if we look at the metrics before, and I suppose integration of eYARD within your terminal operating system, we measure that's during the proof of concept phase. That is where we are testing whether the algorithm would be a perfect solution for your facility or not. But at that phase, we mainly look at the reduction of shifters, because that is what is the interesting point here, to improve your efficiency, reducing costs. So that is what we measure at that point before. Then after integration, once the module gets connected with your TOS via API, we also offer you a dashboard in which more KPIs and metrics will be offered. And these dashboards will be available for different levels within the organization. You can think, for example, that at managerial level, you would like to know other things than you are in a more technical department like IT. But just to give you a few examples, for example, at managerial level, we monitor at the moment the achieved cost savings, carbon dioxide reduction, or, for example, the productivity per equipment operator. It's going to be an interesting field. When we go to more operational type of level, there the typical yard operations indicators will be shown, like the occupancy level, dwell time per client, stacking height, and also the average number of yard moves per key move, because I think that in the end is an important indicator to see whether the algorithm is successful. In the ideal terminal, a key move will only generate 2 yard moves, but okay, we all know that the world is not ideal at the moment, so this is what we're working for. And then at last, the technical department, as I said, they want to know completely different things. They want to know what will be the average response time, for example, when you make a call for a yard position, or what will be the average downtime of the system, hopefully almost 0. Is there any peak demand in time, for example? Well, this is all elements which are incorporated in a dashboard. It is a standard one, but I would say that we talk with many parties, and some people would like to focus more on one aspect and others on another aspect, so it can always be customized if necessary.
Thank you, Mike. That's great to hear. We're going to launch a third poll. Now we're getting familiar with them. Do you think the KPIs at your terminal could be improved with AI technology? So hopefully, following on from this conversation, we've got a better idea of an answer for this one. Just a couple more seconds and we'll see the responses. Thank you everyone for taking the time of responding as well. Wonderful. So 75% of you have answered yes, that you do believe that KPIs could be improved with AI technology. So Mike, does it work with all terminal operating systems?
Yes, in principle it can, Marta. It is, as I said, eYARD connects via an API protocol. So eYARD is a standalone, it's a cloud-based solution, and your TOS, every time it needs the position for a container which arrives, it will send out a request to the algorithm. So this goes via an API protocol. So as long as your TOS allows for communications with third-party applications, it would work, I will say. We have applied it, of course, and well, also just to give you a little bit idea about response times and so on, we see that it goes pretty fast. So it's also not that you have to wait for some time before getting a reply. eYARD works very fast. And you ask for a position. What eYARD then does is it will make a prediction about what would be the next move of this container. Based on incoming moment and outgoing, it will determine what will be the dwell time based on historic data. And then it will evaluate hundreds of possible positions and what would be the best one to put your container. And that whole process will be done in about 50 milliseconds. So it goes pretty fast. Well, the fact that it is cloud-based is also allowing for a secure and reliable connection, I would say. So it's pretty good in that sense.
Thank you, Mike. Pablo, so much of making the decision of implementing a tool as such comes down to cost. Is this technology costly?
I truly believe that in general, not adopting innovation or technology in a business is the opportunity cost is way much expensive than actually the cost of implementing the technology, right? We've seen before with unproductive moves that is already having an impact on the P&L and the level of competitiveness of the operator. So I really believe that there is a gap there, and we will only increase between terminals that adopt it and terminals that don't in the future. But answering to your question, in our personal case, I don't know how it works for our peer group, but basically we've decided to base our revenue model on a pay-per-use. So there is no high upfront costs. It's pure OPEX and not CAPEX, which makes it at the end bring the return on investment really quicker on time, right? So at the end, we are a bit also concerned, or at least understand what the investment, the characteristics of an investment in terminal operators, and we take that into account.
Thank you, Pablo. And thank you everyone as well that has been adding the questions through the chat or the Q&A. We have seen them coming through, but we have one last poll before we move on to Q&As. And the question says, how willing are you to do a proof of concept to see added value for your terminal? How willing are you to do a proof of concept to see added value for your terminal? We'll see the answers in just a couple more seconds. Thank you again for your input. we should be finalizing soon. Wonderful. So he says, we've got a mixed response in this one. So 53% of you will be willing to explore. That's the most popular answer. And so thank you, everyone, as I said, for the questions submitted to the Q&A. We're going to start with the following. Could you elaborate further about how the cloud TOS trend will be speeding up the intro and adoption of artificial intelligence at terminals?
Mike, do you want to take this one or shall I?
No, you give it a start, Pablo.
Okay. It's definitely it's going to be a game changer. So up until now, we have been used to on-premises POS, on-premises software, which meant a lot of high investments and a lot of maintenance cost and a number of things, and make it really, really difficult to have a plug-in solutions besides what the current one we have, right? So we see that the sector in general are moving slowly towards a cloud-based sector. But also, there's a lot of companies like ours using different technology to plug into current terminal operating systems and try to make it more efficient and more competitive, right? So by doing it through the cloud, this allows a much quicker and faster adoption of the technology than doing it or having it on premises. So I definitely see that's going to change, and we will see a trend happening in the future more and more often.
Thank you, Pablo. Mike, would you like to add anything to it?
No, I think Pablo explained it very well, Marta. But sometimes I have this vision that the TOS will become some kind of what we have on our mobile phone. You know, you have a standard operating system which fulfills all kind of functions. But if you want to chat, well, you can choose between WhatsApp or Telegram or Signal or whatever. Yeah. And maybe this is also going to happen in our sector. So you have a basic operating system for basic functions within your facility. But then for ship planning, you can choose between a few apps, to say it that way, to work with, and okay, and maybe today you use this one, but after a few years another one has appeared, has introduced new elements, new type of technology, and then you can change easily, especially if it's connected via this technology of API protocols.
Thank you, Mike. That actually ties in with the next question, which was, will eYARD substitute the TOS of a terminal? And so unless you want to add anything else to it, I think we're going to move on to how long it will take for the solution to be integrated within your TOS.
It really depends, no? It really depends on the terminal. There's a number of factors. What we are typically seeing is that a proof of concept or a pilot takes around 2 to 3 months. Then the integration phase is a bit also more dependent on the terminal operator itself, but it could take as low as 2 weeks, and it can go up to 2 months, 3 months. So we're talking about a minimum of 4 months in total, a maximum of around 5-6 months. It's really dependent on the resources that are dedicated and how quickly are on the reaction side. So, but it's around those timeframes.
Thank you. And another one of the questions says, is it possible to develop this AI technology in a multi-purpose terminal?
Okay, Mike, yes, it is. And actually, we are working on it as we speak. No? There is not so much impacted on whether it's a multi-purpose or it's about the quality of the data, right? And it's about the predictability component. So there's a number of things that affect more than the type of terminal itself. But initially, we don't have any reasons to believe that it won't work. But of course, it will be dependent on a number of factors. And at the end, we need to explore that together with the operator.
Thank you, Pablo. Another one of the questions we've got says, how long is it taking for a standard YARD optimization project by eYARD from initial workshop to solution deployment? Any idea on the frequency for iterations on data maintenance routines and overall involvement by eYARD at the operational phase?
Yeah. So I think we already answered the first one, and the second one is that's a tricky question, right? That also depends on the terminal. So I prefer to first look at the data in order to give a complete answer to that, right? Because it's really fully dependent on a number of factors.
Thank you. And so, do you have any experiences connecting and using eYARD with Navis operated terminals?
Yeah, not with Navis. We are in discussions with them, with expert Dekker. We're trying to find a pilot that would suit. Unfortunately, I think they see us a little bit of a competitors in this sense. But as we speak, we don't have any integrations with any of the things.
Will this system help us to solve problems we have to face faster? As an example, there are a lot of unexpected problems, like, for instance, arrival backlies with mistakes, swap positions, crane split changes, additions, cancellations, etc. When a vessel is operating, you need to meet deadlines, avoiding delays, and these kind of problems take some time to solve, and we need to solve them as soon as possible. Will this system help us to improve our solving capacity?
Yes, that's a good question. So actually, what any AI system allows you to create is simulations, right? And how that different simulations will impact your yard operations, your asset allocation, the needs of the different resources. So by making all these simulations and calculations, you can actually make and predict them and act much faster than if you wouldn't have any of those simulations done before, right? So I would say yes, that is definitely one of the key advantages of using artificial intelligence at solving this type of processes. But we will also need to look more in detail on it, of course.
Thank you, Pablo. I think we have time for one more question. So, knowing the importance of cybersecurity these days, what impact will have eYARD on this area?
Shall I go again, Mike?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So basically, what we do is we have implemented a number of microservices, and we have implemented a number of cloud servers that meet that specific purpose. We do understand the sensitivity issue that there is with all the data that is relevant for container terminals and in the shipping industry in general. So when we take this matter really seriously and adopt all the protocols that are needed to have the backups necessary and to avoid any potential entrance on that data. Nowadays, believe it or not, this might come as a surprise, but having the data and all in the cloud is way much more secure than having on premises. No, we tend to think that is the other way around, but there are sufficient infrastructure and security levels to protect that from any attack from happening.
Thank you, Pablo. With that, unless somebody else has any more questions, we're going to wrap up. So first of all, thank you very much, Pablo and Mike, for sharing such valuable and insightful information. And thank you also to all attendees for joining us this afternoon. We hope you found the information valuable, and we look forward to reconnecting with you in future webinars. So please feel free to reach out if you would like to make an assessment or if you wish to continue the conversation about this data revolution. Have a wonderful rest of the day, and we will hopefully see you again soon.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.